My name is Brian Kamenker. Pro-family groups across America and from Britain to Australia have asked me to share what same-sex marriage has done to Massachusetts, which was the first state in the U.S. to allow this travesty. I'm the president of the pro-family group Mass Resistance. For almost 20 years, we've been fighting for parental rights in the schools and pro-family values. Anyone who thinks that same-sex marriage is a benign eccentricity which won't affect the average person should consider what it has done to Massachusetts since 2004. It's been used as a hammer to force everyone to accept homosexuality. The slippery slope is real. New radical demands never cease. On November 18, 2003, the Massachusetts Supreme Judicial Court announced its Goodridge opinion, declaring that it was unconstitutional not to allow same-sex marriage. 6 months later, despite public outrage, homosexual weddings began to take place, and that was just the beginning. Almost immediately after the gay marriage ruling in Massachusetts, things started happening in high schools across the state. Starting in early December of 2003, there were school-wide assemblies to celebrate same-sex marriage. Kids were given literature from national homosexual groups, telling them how it was now to be considered a normal part of society. Children in schools were given this sheet on marriage myths by the homosexual group Gay and Lesbian Advocates and Defenders. One of their myths is that the purpose of marriage is procreation. Another myth is that children are better off when raised by a mother and a father. And lots of other things were handed out. Within months, it was brought into the middle schools. An exhibit called Love Makes a Family, meant to normalize the concept of homosexual marriage in kids' minds, was going through schools across the state. In September of 2004, an 8th grade teacher in Brookline, Massachusetts, told National Public Radio that the gay marriage ruling had opened up the door to teaching homosexuality in her class. She told NPR, "Give me a break, it's legal now." The following year, it was in elementary school curricula, with hostility toward parents who disagreed. Kindergarteners in Lexington, Massachusetts, were given copies of a picture book, Who's in a Family, telling them that same-sex couples are just another kind of family, just like their own parents. The book made a point of showing 2 mothers and 2 fathers to the children. One Lexington parent, David Parker, demanded to be notified when this was happening and to be able to opt out his son in kindergarten. But rather than work with him, the arrogant school officials had him arrested and put him in jail overnight when he wouldn't cease his demand. The case outraged parents across the state, but the school officials refused to relent. The next year, 2nd graders at the same school were read a book, King and King, about 2 men who fall in love and marry each other, ending with a picture of them kissing. When parents Rob and Robin Worthland complained, they were told that the school had no obligation to notify them or allow them to opt their child out. So the Parkers and the Worthlands filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the town and the school system. Parents rallied to their side, but in 2007, a panel of federal judges ruled that because same-sex marriage is legal in Massachusetts, schools actually have a duty to normalize homosexual relationships to children, and schools have no obligation to notify parents or let them opt out their children, even in elementary school. In fact, according to the court's ruling, acceptance of homosexuality is now a matter of good citizenship. School libraries have also radically changed, from elementary school to high school, with books normalizing homosexual marriage. In particular, a large, slick hardcover book celebrating Massachusetts homosexual marriages
began to appear in many school libraries across the state. Titled Courting Equality, it was supplied to schools by a major homosexual activist organization. It teaches that gay marriage was a great civil rights victory. Activist teachers began displaying photos of their same-sex spouses in their classrooms and bringing their same-sex spouses to school functions. And when an attempt at a constitutional amendment to stop same-sex marriage began gathering steam, there was a full-court press on students to actively support same-sex marriage. Kids in school were even persuaded to march in gay pride parades with pro-same-sex marriage banners. And there's more.
Businesses and corporations were affected in ways nobody anticipated.
All insurance in Massachusetts must now recognize same-sex married couples in their coverage. This includes auto insurance, health insurance, life insurance, and everything else. Businesses must recognize same-sex married couples in all their benefits and activities regarding both employees and customers. People can get fired from their jobs for expressing religious objections to same-sex marriage. In 2009, an employee of a Boston business was fired for mentioning his disagreement with same-sex marriage after another employee brought it up. It even made the local TV news. His letter of termination said that his comment was inappropriate because, quote, in Massachusetts, same-sex marriage is legal. And of course, the wedding industry is required to serve the homosexual community if requested. Wedding photographers, halls, caterers, etc. must accept same-sex marriage events or be held liable for discrimination. Businesses are often tested for tolerance by homosexual activists. The activists will go into restaurants or bars and publicly kiss and fondle each other to test whether the establishment demonstrates sufficient equality, and if not, the businesses can be fined and punished.
The legal profession and the judicial system have also been terribly affected.
The Massachusetts bar exam now tests lawyers on their knowledge of same-sex marriage law. In 2007, a Boston man failed the Massachusetts bar exam because he refused to answer a question about homosexual marriage. Increasingly, lawyers in Massachusetts firms practicing family law must now attend seminars on homosexual marriage. Specific issues regarding homosexual family law are now firmly entrenched in the Massachusetts legal system. In addition, there are now several homosexual judges overseeing the Massachusetts family courts.
Almost immediately after same-sex marriages came to Massachusetts, the changes started, beginning here at the State House and permeating throughout government.
One of the first shocking changes was to the marriage license itself. It doesn't say husband and wife anymore. It now says Party A and Party B. And the state's justices of the peace were ordered to perform same-sex marriages when requested, despite religious objections they may have. Some were forced to resign rather than comply. A climate of fear has kept politicians at all levels from disagreeing with or criticizing the homosexual movement since same-sex marriage came to Massachusetts. Public officials are afraid of being accused of wanting to, quote, take away rights, and this fear has expanded to suppress any meaningful debate on all homosexual-related issues. Additionally, it has brought a feeling of intimidation among pro-family people across the state. In recent years, the numbers of politicians and political candidates marching in the Gay Pride Parade is staggering. Every year in Boston, at the beginning of Gay Pride Week, members of the City Council gather in front of City Hall and pay their respects to the homosexual rainbow flag, which then flies over Boston City Hall for the entire week.